Call us on 03030 80 55 55. Text 81771 or email the programme talk.back@bbc.co.uk.
Next to the extraordinary story of an enormous attack using exploding pagers, which many news agencies are linking to Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad. The death toll has risen to 12, including 2 children and some local healthcare workers. Thousands were injured in the attack on Hezbollah, the Lebanese Islamist political party and armed group, which is banned as a terrorist organisation in the UK, the EU, the US and other countries. The Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, is one of a number of political leaders today questioning the legality of that action. He says the explosions that we've seen in Lebanon are a breach of the Geneva Conventions. Let's speak first to Olivia Lapointe-Devant. She's a journalist with Lorient Today, based in Beirut. Olivia, welcome. Good to have you with us. Just bring us right up to speed in terms of the numbers of people injured in this attack, this coordinated attack, and the scale of this, first of all, which is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, so this was a nationwide attack that is quite unprecedented following the 12 months of fighting that's been happening between Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and Israel in the north there. Essentially what we saw in the past 24 hours is 100 hospitals receive patients. We now know 2,800 people have been injured, 12 dead, including 2 children. And we also know that about 10% of those are said to be in critical condition. And in addition, we also have an official statement from Hezbollah confirming that 8 of those dead are indeed Hezbollah members. Though, of course, we do expect both the casualty list and the list of people who have died to rise.
Obviously, we've been reporting it already, a number of news agencies pointing the finger at Mossad, the Israeli spy agency, as the agency behind this attack. What is Israel saying?
Israel has not commented, but that is not unusual. Israel has form of carrying out these kind of cyber hybrid warfare style attacks, for example, in Iran in recent years, but also during this conflict as well. And in all those instances, Israel never confirmed it was them, particularly if, as we most likely think, Mossad was involved. But certainly, we can be fairly confident in saying it has the fingerprints of a Mossad-style attack. It was very sophisticated, using new technology that has not been seen before. Mossad has deep intelligence on Hezbollah and has done for many years. And we also know that previously, actually the reason why these pages were being put into use in the first place is because Israel succeeded in infiltrating Hezbollah's mobile phone network back in February, which is why the group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, said in a speech back then to all his followers to stop using mobile phones and to move towards pages or face-to-face discussions and messaging.
Nasrallah, one of those not affected by this attack.
Sorry?
He has not himself been affected by this attack.
Correct. No, Hassan Nasrallah has not been affected. However, as I said, we do know that amongst those dead are some Hezbollah members. Many will, I'm sure, in the coming days, will learn of many being badly injured. But we also should mention that the Iranian embassy have confirmed that their ambassador here, has been gravely injured and has actually had bad damage to his eyes. Iran, of course, as you mentioned, being the main backer to Hezbollah.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Much appreciated from Lorient Today, Olivia Lapointe-Devant. We're joined also by Professor Lina Khatib, who's an Associate Fellow at the Middle East and North Africa Programme at Chatham House, the think tank. Lina, welcome. Good to have you with us. Obviously, big political questions here, defence questions, military and security questions too, about Lebanon, Hezbollah within Lebanon, and Israel. How do you see it at this point? How does what happened yesterday change the politics of that region?
Yesterday is the biggest security breach that Hezbollah has encountered in its history. I mean, you have a group that has for decades been presenting an image of an impenetrable organization, and it has used this kind of pretext to claim political power in Lebanon, because basically it has been saying it needs to have this ultra security in place so that it can play a role in defending Lebanon. That's how Hezbollah presents itself. And it has used this to kind of say we are untouchable. It has managed to operate with a great degree of impunity as a result for years. For example, it has its own telecommunications network that's separate from the national grid. Its activities in the port of Beirut and the airport also happen without supervision from Lebanese authorities. So now it has been shown to be actually quite vulnerable. So in a way, this changes things for Hezbollah, because the state of exception that it had been enjoying is now exposed as not being quite what it had purported it to be.
It is an extraordinary humiliation, however you look at this, for Hezbollah, as you say, Lena. I know that most Israeli children at some point in their childhood are shown the film Raid on Entebbe. Some of them are shown that film in schools. What happened in terms of the liberation of those who were abducted in that famous moment in Entebbe has become mythic. I would have thought this will take on mythic proportions in Israeli culture and in the future, because President Netanyahu is facing enormous pressure to do something about the 60,000 Israelis in northern Israel who are not able to live in their own homes because of Hezbollah attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is completely the flip side of what I was saying about Hezbollah in Lebanon. So what I was saying about Hezbollah in Lebanon is that this completely undermines Hezbollah's narrative as being a strong, necessary defense actor in Lebanon that's impenetrable. Netanyahu, on the other hand, will be presenting this as a great success, as an operation that is almost like the work of basically science fiction. Who would have imagined basic technology, like pagers, becoming killing machines? He will definitely present this as the response to public demand about restoring security in northern Israel, which is basically the border with Lebanon.
Thank you very much, Lena. Professor Lena Khatib from Chatham House. It really does, when we first heard it yesterday, it sounded like something from a Le Carre novel. But what's interesting is it's quite old school technology, isn't it? The pager. The irony of all of this is, for security reasons, Hezbollah moves away from mobile phones to these pagers. Some of the reports we're getting suggest that this pager shipment came through a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, which would suggest that if this is Mossad, as most agencies are now reporting, if this is Mossad, they began this operation months ago and planned it carefully, and perhaps put small explosive devices inside the pagers, maybe disguised as components within pagers, and then some kind of cyber trigger or other kind of trigger was used so that they would be detonated at the same time with this extraordinary effect. And when we say that many hundreds and thousands of people are injured in this attack, remember, injured can mean lots of things. It can also mean, and does mean in many cases here, 10% of those who are injured taken to hospital are in critical condition. Some were blinded, some required amputations. So it's an extraordinarily brutal attack as much as anything else. Kevin Curran is with us, Professor of Cybersecurity at Ulster University. Philip Ingram, former Senior Intelligence Officer, with us, also chemical weapons expert. Welcome, Philip. Welcome, Kevin. Kevin, I mean, we're speculating really in terms of how this was carried out, but what's your best guess? How was this done?
It could only be one thing. It can only be an explosive that was implanted inside the pager. You cannot get a lithium battery to explode on demand. Generally, they catch fire and they heat up. So this was triggered by a message to the pager. And then, of course, the initial part of it is that they had to compromise the supply chain, in other words, who provided the pagers to Hezbollah. So it seems that they set up a company a few years ago, that they had built a reputation for selling secure pagers and other such things to the underworld. Then they got the order for these pagers again, which were compromised again. And 5 months is a long time because they ran the risk of these being exposed through x-rays. Of course, they didn't expect Hezbollah to come along and to x-ray any equipment that comes through, even though we know about hardware supply chain attacks from the leaks by Edward Snowden a few years ago. But if any of these people who had been given these explosive pagers had gone through airports, they ran the risk of being discovered by the airport authorities, because what you have is explosive material, and scanners at airports should be able to detect these pagers. So that was a risk of being exposed too early.
There's a question about the rules of engagement, the rules of war, the Geneva Conventions. Philip, on that point, given the history of the relationship between the Israeli government and Hezbollah, do you regard this as a legal action, if it is indeed an action of Mossad?
Perspective and an operational perspective, it was a sophisticated, accurately targeted supply chain attack. Israel has been attacking Hezbollah leaders and members ever since Hezbollah has been attacking Israel, and it's been Hezbollah has been rocketing Israel on a daily basis since the 8th of October last year.
Yeah,
and you've got a choice of having something sophisticated that's targeting individuals that your intelligence organizations have confirmed only members of that organization will have access to these pagers, or dropping a 500-pound bomb on them. One has greater chance of collateral damage compared to the other.
81771, we're getting lots of your reaction to this, both on the questions of the technology and also those who were targeted, and I think on the legality question, lots of you commenting on that as well. Let me read some of that out for you. David says, William, if you go to war with Israel, you will lose. I hope they wipe out all the terrorists in that region. Power to Israel. Another listener says, any other country doing this, and America would be bombing them by now. Why is Israel allowed to do this? I don't believe for a moment that 3,000 people are injured, says this text. This is a terrorist claim, and we know how to take this figure with a pinch of salt. The killing of civilians is a sad reality of having terrorists mingling with civilians and using them as cover. I think you're mixing up what's happening in Gaza there with these individuals moving around shopping markets and the like in Lebanon, but I'm not sure too many people are challenging the figures. The figures, look, Philip, the figures are coming from health ministries within Lebanon. Have you any reason to doubt the number of people injured here?
No reason to doubt the number of people injured at all. And we have to recognise that Hezbollah is part of the Lebanese government, but it's a number of different organisations as one. It's got its political wing, and it's got its military wing, and the military wing is both of them are closely linked to organised crime across the region. So Hezbollah is one of the, it's not just a terrorist organisation; it's one of the largest drugs and narcotics cartels in the Middle East, largest money laundering organisations in the Middle East. And it traffics, children, underage girls, as part of sex trafficking across the region as well. They are not a pleasant group of people.
Kevin, there's a question I still have, and a lot of our listeners have it too. If we speculate, and I think you experts are speculating in a similar direction, aren't you, that this would be explosives that were contained within these pages as part of a supply chain intervention by whoever did this, probably Mossad. How do you explain the triggering, the simultaneous triggering?
Well, you just have a certain message which comes through. Whether or not it was on the same network itself, you could implant some type of bug within the device itself which accepts the message coming through. Like bombs have been exploding remotely for decades, really. So it's just a modern way of doing it. But you can have special commands within any paging system which sets off a certain alert as well.
So it could be sending a message to every pager. Like meeting at 3 o'clock. Say that message is sent to every pager, or something a bit more specific. And that would how would that trigger, though, an explosion?
I mean, you can set the, within the firmware, inside the device, you can have a trigger code going off for whatever alert it is. No, this can be done within the hardware quite easily. I mean, they're famous for one of the cyber attacks on the Iranian centrifuges, which spin up uranium a number of years ago, where they actually made them spin out of control again. And they did that one by leaving USB keys, these USB devices in the car park, hoping that someone would pick it up and bring it inside and plug it into the network, which was actually offline, the Siemens control systems as well. So that worked for them nicely. So that, again, no one compares to Israelis when it comes to technologies on person per person again. Again, there's only 15 million Israelis, Jewish people in the world, again, making up 0.2% of the population. But they really, outweigh the entire world when it comes to technology and cybersecurity as well, given the 8,200 unit that they have within the Israeli army, where people do up to 7 years again. And a lot of them come out and spin out cybersecurity companies and technology companies as well. They have an extraordinary tech sector inside Israel and Tel Aviv and all these things.
They have quite a Silicon Valley there in Israel in terms of the tech developments, as you say, and many of us with particular branded phones have a bit of Israel in all of our phones. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has now given his reaction to this attack. In the last few minutes, he was speaking in Cairo, meeting the Egyptian foreign minister to discuss efforts to secure a ceasefire deal in Gaza.
The United States did not know about, nor was it involved in these incidents, and we're still gathering the information and gathering the facts. Broadly speaking, we've been very clear, and we remain very clear, about the importance of all parties avoiding any steps that could further escalate the conflict that we're trying to resolve in Gaza, to see it spread to other fronts. It's clearly not in the interest of anyone involved to see that happen. And that's why, again, it's imperative that all parties refrain from any actions that could escalate the conflict.
That's the U.S. Secretary of State. Philip, a number of my listeners are saying, some people are throwing this word terrorism around. Why isn't this terrorism by Mossad? If it was Mossad, and most people think it was Mossad who carried this out, why wouldn't this be terrorism? Because if Hezbollah did this to the Israelis in Tel Aviv, you would surely be saying this is terrorism, wouldn't you?
Well, I think we're mixing up tactics and definitions. Hezbollah is a recognized terror organization. It is not a nation state. Israel is a nation state and member of the
Can't nation
United
states
Nations.
engage in acts of terror?
Nation states can use terror tactics in dealing with things.
Do you regard it as a terror tactic by Mossad?
I would argue that this is a sophisticated, targeted attack that has been designed to reduce collateral damage compared to using conventional weapons.
If Hezbollah did this in Tel Aviv, you would regard that as a terrorist act?
Well, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, so every act that they commit is by the very nature and the definition.
But again, I'm not using the word terrorist or terror. I'm saying terrorist act. You would regard it as a terrorist act if Hezbollah did this to Israel. But if Israel does it in Lebanon, it's not a terrorist act.
Everything that Hezbollah does because
they have breakfast. That's a terrorist act. Because I get your theory, but it's also the case that nation states can commit terrorist acts. You already conceded that.
Oh, nation states can commit terrorist-style acts in the actions that they're taking.
Or terrorist-style acts now.
They have to justify that in the domestic law of their own country, the domestic law.
So why
wouldn't
you regard this as a terrorist act by a nation state?
Well, I don't see the necessity to label it as such. I see this as a very sophisticated attack against a horrible terrorist and criminal organization that was designed to reduce collateral damage and therefore successful.
But that you see, that's the point that many of our listeners are hearing you saying. If Israel does it, it's fine. It's a legitimate act. If somebody I don't agree with or don't like does it, it's not fine. It's morally and legally disgraceful.
Well, Hezbollah don't follow the rules of war and don't follow international law, and they don't even follow domestic law, as we heard from one of the callers earlier. So we're debating something that really is irrelevant in all of this. Israel has got an existential threat from Hezbollah. They need to do everything that they can to try and mitigate that risk
within the law. Within
the laws that they're operating under. And I know Israel does look at the legal side of what it's doing in very careful detail in everything. That's not what is common out in the commentary that we're getting about Israel's actions across the world.
And Kevin, just finally, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I wish we had another hour actually on this. It's fascinating. Obviously, there are lots of things in the toolboxes of different intelligence and spy agencies around the world and the military that the rest of us don't know about. I suspect Philip knows more than both of us about what they might have, but that they could be using in the future. We've just been talking about artificial intelligence in the last item, and presumably they already have AI-based tools as well.
Absolutely. You have no idea what the intelligence agencies, the technology that they have. I'll give you, like, the thing that secures our online encrypted HTTPS or public key encryption was actually only discovered in the 70s. Again, and that's what protects all our transactions online. But actually, it turns out a few years ago that we found out that the British intelligence had discovered it in the 50s and it kept it secret for 50 years. So there's stuff which the intelligence agencies know now, technological-wise, again, that we have no idea about, will only be revealed in the years to come.
Goodness. And how far could it go? Because obviously if nation states, to use that expression, have access to this kind of technology, and the technology is being democratized, smaller groups and indeed individuals or rogue individuals, Kevin, that's the big worry, might also get access to it.
It is, yeah. The closest attack I've seen to this was at the famous DEF CON conference, again, for hackers in Las Vegas, where someone had built a camera. So when a suspect came into view of the camera exploded, killing the person again. So again, it's like, again, that. So there's technology in the future, and we can't even, we spend all day talking about drones and, what they will do when they become smaller.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Much appreciated. Let's get the news. 1:00.